I've got Franklin Pierce with Annette Burnett as well is here, and she's going to share their story on how they're using TeacherEase in the standards-based grading space. And you'll see them using TeacherEase for instructional intelligence, as well as better communication on mastery progress to families. So with that, Annette, it is yours.
Thank you. So we came in our journey a little bit differently. I started in Franklin Pierce 6 years ago, and Franklin Pierce had been on their journey of standards-based grading, had been using a Gradebook, what we called online grades, which was designed by a programmer, which is going to become important in the story later, who designed the standards-based grading Gradebook and the elementary report card exactly how the district wanted it. So that's kind of where I came into the story and the journey, and then help further that as we roll it along. And then you always have that joke, you have a person you're relying on, and what happens if they get hit by a bus? And unfortunately, he had some health concerns, had to retire, and that was the only programmer we had for the Gradebook. And so we had to start looking for a product that would meet our needs. And we did several different product reviews, did a year of pilot or half a year of piloting 3 different products. TeacherEase is one of those products. And on this slide here were some of our non-negotiables, what we were looking for in a product. And that really helped us decide which one was the best fit for our district based on what we had and what we need moving forward. And so standards-based grading, learning, grading, and reporting are all tied together. And so some of the gradebook products we looked at only recorded some, but still reported it out a percentage. And we were beyond that in our journey. And so we wanted to make sure that we could clearly communicate that standards-based score coming out. And then some of the other pieces that are on here, I'll talk a little bit more about incomplete plus, but that is a huge part of how we differentiate students who are struggling, students who are not meeting standard, and being able to have that either part of the system or built into the system in some way. Another one of the pieces is our current SIS. So we do not use TeacherEase Common Goals student information system. Moving away from our SIS was not an option. It does too much in our district. It controls our payroll, all of our teacher stuff. Our IT department was like, nope, this is what we're doing. So we had to find a gradebook that could complement our SIS and work with our SIS. The next slide, Joe. So that's also where TeacherEase was one of the front runners in the product. Is they have an easy way for our information from the SIS to get to just the gradebook part of the Common Goal system. And so we do scheduled nightly exports from our SIS. We use one roster. Joe has some other options on here like Clever. But basically, our IT department sets up an export. It exports certain information and feeds it into TeacherEase. So when teachers log into their gradebooks, they see student information, they see demographic information, parent, family contact information. There's some other pieces you can upload separately, but kind of the base information is there. So that really fit our needs to have a separate gradebook. So the way we rolled out was with that one programmer having a gradebook already for our 6 through 12 teachers. We actually started with middle school and high school rolling out with TeacherEase, training our teachers. We had to have parent and student access open right away because they were used to being able to see their grades in real time. We have a piece on athletic eligibility. So once you're in high school and you have to have a transcript and you have to have a letter grade and you have to have athletic eligibility, standards-based grading, how do you make that happen? And I'll touch on that in a couple of slides coming up. Creating an overall score. So not just reporting out at the standards level, but getting to that content area grade. High school still needing that transcript. So we do have a conversion chart that we use after we get through standards-based grading to what is that letter grade on the transcript. And then this year, we're working on moving our middle school kind of back away from that letter grade to a standards-based report card. So this is the first year our 6th graders have had a standards-based report card, and next year it'll be 6th and 7th, and the following year 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then when you talk about starting something in a pandemic that you didn't know you were starting, last year, we rolled out elementary to TeacherEase, and this is the first time they have had a uniform grade book. They've all had their own developed gradebook systems, but they've had a uniform report card, but now we're asking them to put stuff in the gradebook. And I remember my boss saying, like, the hardest thing we're gonna do this year is get them into the report cards and into the gradebook, and then pandemic hit after first trimester, right? Not the hardest thing we did that year. So last year we started with elementary. I've been working on using the gradebook more as reporting tools. And next year we hope to build on that as we use it to show them how they can run reports and do data collection, which is really one of a great functionality of the TeacherEase gradebook. And then we're planning on parent and student access, since they haven't had real-time access to grades and have only had trimester report cards come out. We've kind of put that off, but starting to push on either next year, probably towards the end of the year, or the following year. But the family portal is also great. So when we looked at traditional grade books versus what we had been doing in standards-based grading, we use what we call the mode of the 5 most recent scores. That was something that was important to us. So when we're looking at our standards, we want a body of evidence from our students. And what is the mode or the most recent scores from that body of evidence? Because they're going to be standards that you hit on all throughout your semester, your trimester. We want to look at the most recent evidence and the most reliable performance for that student. So at the standard level, it will report out the mode. And then that rolls up into what we call our domains. TeacherEase calls them the parent. So when you look at the language in yours and the language that you use, there is a little bit of a transition. And then one thing I saw in Michelle's slide is it said learning targets. They use learning targets. And there's parts of TeacherEase where you can customize it. So for my teachers, it shows up as standards instead of learning targets, because that's the language we use. So those standards roll up to the domain. The domains are then averaged for that overall grade. And then with the leveling of standards, this was one of the questions I think that came up was, when you use a Common Core standard, how specific can you get in reporting? And so you can have multiple levels for those standards in TeacherEase, and then decide what does each level need to calculate at. So for us, we have standards, which are calculated at a mode, which roll up to a domain, which are an average. And so we chose those 2 different levels for calculation, but you can break that standard down to the components if you wanted to. One of the examples we give is in elementary math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of fractions is one standard. Do we break that down into addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? And so we track at each one of those levels is a possibility in TeacherEase rather than having that cluster. So our grading scale for high school, we have half steps between them. We have the 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 in elementary. We use 0 because it triggers in the calculation that we've set up, knowing that zeros are not motivators, but find that the way that we have set up our calculations, it helps to put those in when evidence is missing. So it triggers some of our other interventions. We also use half steps at the high school, middle school for that athletic eligibility, GPA calculation piece that you don't get out of using only 4, 3, 2, 1. So this slide is an example of what does that roll up look like? What does the grade look like when it's coming from the standard? So I have the domain and then the standard. Those are our 2 levels for the most part. And then the mode is based on the tasks. Those are the assignments or the assessments that the teacher is inputting into the gradebook. And so in the example on the right, the student in standard number 1 scored a 2 and a 3. There's no mode, so it's going to default to the most recent score. In standard 2, there is a mode of 2. And then that 3 and that 2 are then averaged to the domain to become a 2.5. Then those domains are then averaged for the overall grade. So you see that 2.5, the 2.5, and the 1 get averaged. So I talked about athletic eligibility and intervention, and how can we report that? So because we'd had a homegrown system, we had developed a way to identify students for both of those pieces. And we're really looking for a gradebook that could mimic it or had something similar or could recreate it for us. And TeacherEase was able to recreate it for us. You do get to pay for it though. I'm going to put that out there. They will do it. They can do it. They have a team of programmers, which is way more than one, which was great. So we gave them, this is what we're looking for. This is what it means to us. And they set their team on it. So we think of incomplete and incomplete plus being what would be like the little f. These are students who are only missing 1 or 2 standards, who have a score of less than 2 in 1 or 2 standards. So these are students who might have missed an assessment, might have had a bad day, might have been struggling in just one area, can still play sports. They're not failing the course, even though they have a couple of standards that are out of compliance. Intervention is typically with their teacher, can be done in what we have ASP, Academic Success Program, or Learning Lab. Incomplete, they have significant gaps. So this is a student we want to pull for intervention, going to need some more structured time. They have multiple standards out of compliance or have several low scores that get their overall grade below a 2.0. And so this is what we use in our middle school and high school to help us differentiate that, pull those students for intervention. As we're looking at summer school right now, we are designing summer school for students who have incomplete pluses. So they only need a little bit of summer school, a little bit of time, a little bit of instruction, a little bit of reassessment. And our incompletes, we're really looking at potentially retaking the whole course. So here's an example using the gradebook. So you can see the domain, RI is reading information, and then the 2 standards, 8.1 and 8.3, and then writing, and the 4 standards that the teacher has assessed using writing. So if I'm looking across this 2.07 incomplete, the student is incomplete because they have 3 standards that are less than a 2, the 8.1, the 8.2, and the 8.8. As opposed to the second student who is an incomplete plus, they've got good scores going across. They only have one standard, W8.8, that's out of compliance. So the gradebook is color coded. It is sortable. If you see those little bitty gray arrows up there, you can toggle them so that it'll pull students up who are not performing as well. You can create differentiated assignments based on that group of students so that it only shows for the students who need that extra support. So you can create an assignment based on intervention, continued learning, and extension all in the same assignment. You can also create an assignment only for a subset of students, and nobody else sees that other than the students it's been assigned to. So the gradebook's super flexible in being able to identify kids just based on toggling, creating differentiated assignments, and then what the student and the parent sees on the portal are only those things assigned to them. So they're not wondering, why is this excused for me and not excused for you, is a great tool. So one of the things in our transition is realizing we hadn't had a way to pull out of online grades what standards we'd had uploaded, how are they being used, how many did we have, and were we really focused and targeted on the number of standards that we were assessing, requiring, and when that overall grade rolls out, is that really a compilation of what the student needs to complete in the class? So our aha comes on the next page. In TeacherEase, there are some really great reports that will tell you that information. And we found we had a course with 150 standards for a semester, 90-day course. And so when we believe in multiple opportunities to show proficiency, 150 standards in 90 days is rough. And so being able to look at that and pull that data apart and say, are you using all 150? If these are essential, how are we covering them? If we are, great. But if we're not, what are we really wanting to get at in this course, and making sure that's what we put into the system. We also hadn't had a chance to review our standards and had some slip in that were not SBLG, like writes their name in the lab notebook. And so the system also allows us to pull out those standards, look at them, review them, and edit them. So we've been doing an edit process all along the way of what standards are uploaded. So this is an example of the report we used with TeacherEase, standards coverage by assignments. So you can pull for a course, what standards are uploaded, how many times were they used, what assignments were they used on those standards. And so this is an NGSS science course, 6th grade. And we can see at the time that I pulled this report, these could have been covered in spring too. So we do that comparison. But district and building admin looked at, hey, MTSS ETS is important. Why are we not covering this standard? Why are there no assessments in this standard? And so that course with 150, you only use 7 of your 150 after the year. Do you need 150? Why do we have 150? So this is a great report for that piece, and allowed our building admin teams to then go into the PLCs and have some discussions as well with their content teams. This is another report that can be pulled at the building or even the teacher level. One of the great things about TeacherEase reports, they can be pulled by multiple people. There does not have to be one person who's in charge of running the graphs. If you have content areas, if you have department time, if you have PLC time, it can be run by anyone, and they can compare themselves across their school. To be able to compare across the district, you do need one from each side. But this is the histogram scores stand by standard, group by section. So each time the teacher teaches a course, we're looking at a standard. So this has 3 different teachers in it. And I'm looking at it, and I have one teacher who used it. Kids are doing great. They've got the 2 tall green bars, so most of their kids are in the 3. I have one teacher who teaches 4 sections and did not use this standard at all. And then I have one teacher who has 4 sections and has varying abilities in her class. And so they can sit down as a PLC and say, hey, we've been working on this standard. Why don't you have any data? What are you doing that all your kids got it? How many times more are we going to hit this standard? And when can we look at this again? And so they can have all of these conversations with this report at their fingertips. For our PLC time, one of the questions that had come up that somebody had submitted was asking about where is time for PD. And so we have what we have called early release Wednesdays. And so every Wednesday, or almost every Wednesday without a holiday Monday kind of thing, we have early release time where at least once a month or twice a month, building PLCs get together. Quarterly, sometimes a little bit more, our district PLCs get together. And then we also have some prad time that we space throughout the year. And so we're really intentional on what data we've been collecting, talking about where our students are, what standards have we been hitting. So I just sat in on the math one yesterday, where we looked at second semester standards and say, what have we not covered? Moving these students into next year, where will the gaps we already know will be because we didn't get to those standards, so we can pass that information on to the next year's teacher. Another one, standards-based score analysis. You can use it to create goals for, if you use TPEP, how is your teacher evaluation? So you can pull these and use them as a focus for your evidence that you're gathering for your evaluation. He says no programming required. There is no programming required. It is drop down, pick your course, pick your standard. When do you want it run? How often do you want it run? Run it. That's it. That's the screen you're looking at right there. On the next slide there. So here's a PLC who picked a standard. We're going to measure it over a chunk of time, and we want to know, are our students doing better in this standard because we've been focusing on it. So each bar represents a time a week that they've been working. Each time the data changes is when they've entered new assessment information. And so then they can look at that as a department and really dig into where there's some gaps, what students still need reassessment, where are we in terms of tracking the progress on this. Another functionality of TeacherEase is the ability to communicate with families and students about progress. So there's a multitude of ways that you can communicate. There are email templates that you can set up so that you have a regular communication going out from the teacher level as well as an admin level. For the teacher, you can email a single student or multiple students. You can set criteria for who you want to email. You can email directly from your gradebook. So you put in an assignment and the student gets a score and you want to let them or the family know what's going on. You send an email, it will attach that information about that assessment to that email specific to that family or student and send that out as well. So communication was another piece that you're not having to go back to Outlook or whatever your mail server is. You can email directly from TeacherEase. It'll keep a record of it there, but the replies will also go to your mail server. So the reply comes to Outlook so the teacher can continue responding there and doesn't have to log back and forth into the system to email. Just another graph that we find useful is a trend for overall course. We run these thinking about students who are struggling, working with a parent last year of when did it all go downhill? What was going on? What happened? You can run an overall trend and kind of see those dips in the overall grade. It's always kind of interesting. You run it right before sports season, like, and we're working on our grades right now. So it's kind of showing the student, they're like, I see you putting forth the effort. I see that improvement and putting that information in front of them. And then the last piece is about support. We joke about no single source of truth. I am not the keeper of the gradebook. I am not the only person you can turn to. Any teacher, any building administrator can call in, can email TeacherEase and receive great support. For me, we're assigned a person who's our contact person, so I can email him directly. I can also email the general support team and they'll get back to me. So there's lots of different ways that you can connect with them to get support if you do run into an area, or like, I'm always wondering, well, I wonder if we can do this. Like, I'm curious about Michelle's little donuts thing, right? I hadn't seen that, and I wonder what triggers that and whether or not I can use it with all the other tools that we're already doing. And whether that's why I don't have access to it is it conflicts with something, or can I add a donut because I really like that idea. So great support, great reaching out.
Michelle, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I agree 100%. The tech support has been amazing. For a few years there, when we were developing the K-5 report cards, doing one each year, I think I spent more time on the phone with my tech support person than I did my family. And they were just, she was there. I was paired with one that did a lot of the setup for me. And we spoke all the time. She was there for me 110%. When I needed something, when I had a question, she walked me through things step by step. If she wasn't available, I just went to the regular tech number and they jumped on and jumped in, no problem. As we've rolled these report cards out, everyone knows, I'm sure, nothing runs as smoothly as you want it to every time. And so we'd be at grade reporting week and, teachers would say, this isn't showing me what I thought it would show me. And I would be like, 1 minute. And literally I would, check in with TeacherEase and they would show me what I had entered incorrectly, or they would fix a bug or whatever the problem was. It was done within, the hour. So the open support from the tech team has been invaluable. And they also listen when there's something there that or not there that you need, that you would recommend that they add to their system. They will work towards putting in a tech report, work order, asking, can this be modified? Can this be added? And usually they're wanting to know that and they get it done. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it. I want to the no single source of truth. I want to just kind of play on that is just the one thing that TeacherEase tries to do is we don't want everybody to have to go through Annette or whatever the one tech person. So we want it to be easy to use, that anybody can use it, but anybody can call in. So I just want to reiterate that is that any of your teachers, we've even had parents call in.
Mhm.
So, we're there to help and support you.